All right. Back. Wayside School. Gets a little stranger. We only have 4 chapters left, so I'm going to try to bust it out right now. 20 pages. If I feel like I need a break after 2 chapters, we'll do it in 2 separate recordings, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. Chapter 27, Way High Up Ball. Way High Up Ball. Eric Fry, Eric Bacon, and Eric Ovens were playing Way High Up Ball. They had made up the game themselves. All you needed were 2 things, a pink rubber ball about the size of a tennis ball and a real tall school. Eric Ovens threw the ball way up high, way high up, I should say. It bounced off the school just above the 3rd-story window. 3-pointer, called Eric Bacon. They shoved and elbowed each other out of the way as they waited for it to come down. At the last second, Eric Fry jumped and caught it. He got 3 points. Eric Ovens also got 3 points since he was the thrower. Eric Fry threw the ball way high up. It bounced off a window on the 5th floor. 5-pointer, called Eric Ovens. All 3 Erics jumped for it. It bounced off their fingertips and hit the ground. The teacher on the 5th story stuck her head out the window. "Hey, what's going on down there?" she shouted. The 3 Erics looked away and whistled. "There's one more thing about Way High Up Ball I haven't told you. You're not allowed to play it." The Erics had already broken one window. Eric Bacon looked up surprised. "Are you talking to us?" he asked. "Something just banged against my window," said the teacher. "Was it a bird?" asked Eric Ovens. The teacher stared at the children a moment longer, then she pulled her head inside. Eric Fry threw the ball way high up. It was a 6-pointer. All 3 fought for position as they waited for it to come down, but at the last second, a hairy arm reached above them and caught it. The arm belonged to Lewis, the yard teacher. "Can I play?" asked Lewis. His mustache had grown back completely. "Sure," all 3 Erics said together. "What do I have to do?" asked Lewis. "Just see how high up against the school you can throw it," said Eric Fry. Lewis gripped the ball tightly in his hand. He reached way back, then let it fly. "Wow," the 3 Erics said together as they watched the ball soar up in the air. It hit up above the 18th-story window. Then Lewis caught his own rebound. 16 points, said Eric Bacon. I was wrong. The 8th-story window. Yikes. So it hit above the 8th-story window. Then Lewis caught his own rebound. 16 points, said Eric Bacon. "Throw it again, Lewis," said Eric Ovens. Now that Lewis was playing, lots of kids from all over the playground came to play too. Lewis threw the ball way high up. It hit above the 11th story, then bounced back over everyone's head. There was a mad scramble for the ball. BB finally came up with it. "Give it to Lewis," said Eric Ovens. "No, let BB throw it," said Lewis, who always tried to be fair. BB threw a 2-pointer. Jason caught the rebound. "You want to throw it, Lewis?" he asked. "No, you go ahead," said Lewis. Jason threw a glopper. A glopper is when the ball goes straight up in the air and comes down without touching the building. Eric Bacon caught it. "Here, Lewis," he said. "No, you throw it," said Lewis. "But you can throw it so much higher," said Eric B. "We want to see how high you can throw it, Lewis," said Leslie. "Come on, Lewis," everyone urged. Lewis shook his head. "The game is for you kids, not for me. Miss Nogard is watching," said BB slyly. Lewis glanced at Miss Nogard, who was standing just outside the front door. "Give me the ball," he said. The kids cheered. Lewis reached way down, almost to the ground, then hurled it up with all his might. The ball reached the 15th floor, halfway up the school. "Wow," everyone said together. "I got it," called Terrence as he circled under the ball, waiting for it to come down. His knees wobbled. The ball bounced off his face. "Cool," he said as blood flowed out of his nose. "That was a world's record, Lewis," exclaimed Eric Ovens. Lewis smiled proudly. He turned to look at Miss Nogard, but she had already gone inside. "You like Miss Nogard, don't you?" asked BB. "She seems like a nice person," said Lewis. "She's pretty, too," said Eric Bacon as he nudged Lewis in the side. "Well, she is kind of cute," Lewis admitted. "Ooh," said Joy. "But do you love her?" asked Jenny. Everyone giggled. Lewis's red face got even redder. "You should ask her out on a date," said Eric Fry. "No, I don't think that's a very good idea," said Lewis. "Why not?" asked Eric Ovens. "I think you two would make a real cute couple." "Bring her flowers," said Dana. "Buy her candy," said Marisha. "Tell her she's got eyes like the moon," said BB. "Eyes like the moon?" asked Lewis. "Girls love it when you tell them that," said BB. "Forget that gushy stuff," said Eric Bacon. "Just walk right up to her and say, 'Hey, baby, how about a date?'" "Just like that?" asked Lewis. This is what you do, said Terrence. You take her to a real scary movie, and then at the scary part, you put your arm around her. Ooh, said Dana and Jenny. No, take her dancing, said Myron, and hold her real close. Ooh, said the three Erics. Lewis laughed. You kids are crazy, he said. You're scared of her, aren't you? Asked Eric Bacon. You shouldn't be scared, said Eric Ovens. You're bigger and stronger and faster than anyone on the playground. And you've got the best mustache, too, said Eric Fry. I'm not afraid of her, Lewis tried to explain. It's just, he looked up at the very tall school. Miss Nogard is way high up there, and I'm way down low here. You'll understand someday when you're older. He picked up the ball and threw it way high up. It hit somewhere between the 18th and 20th story and never came down. There was no 19th story. We've known that, though, haven't we? All right, chapter 28, Flowers for a Very Special Person. Of course, Miss Nogard knew all about Lewis. The children's brains were buzzing about him. Lewis likes Miss Nogard, thought Stephen. Lewis is in love with Miss Nogard, thought Todd. Lewis wants to marry Miss Nogard, thought Sherry. But even if she couldn't listen to their brains, she would have found out anyway. Lewis, the yard teacher, is madly in love with you, said Jenny. Oh, really, said Miss Nogard. He dreams about you every night, said Kelvin. He thinks your eyes are like the moon, said Bebe. Miss Nogard smiled. Do you like him? Asked Jenny. He's kind of cute, said Miss Nogard. Ooh, Bebe and Kelvin said together. What about his mustache? Asked Jenny. Do you like his mustache? Miss Nogard thought a moment. It would probably tickle if he kissed me. The children gasped as their mouths fell open. They returned to their desks and told everyone around them what Miss Nogard said. Miss Nogard smiled. She wondered just how she'd break Lewis's heart. Ever since Xavier broke her heart, she'd become an expert at breaking other people's. She listened to men's brains and knew just what to say to make them fall in love with her. And then she knew just the right thing to say at just the right moment to shatter their hearts into a million pieces. Even the biggest and strongest man would cry like a baby. She was incapable of love. Her heart was clogged with bitterness and hate, and besides, she knew no one ever would love. She knew no one ever. Sorry, I misspoke. And besides, she knew no one would ever love someone with 3 ears. For just a second, she felt a pang of sadness because she really did think Lewis was kind of cute, like a puppy dog. She could almost feel the tickle of his mustache. Miss Nogard thinks you're cute, Jenny told Lewis at recess. She's hot for you, Lewis, said Mac. She wants to kiss you, said Bebe. Come on, let's play kickball, said Lewis. They played kickball, but it was weird. Lewis, who was probably the best kickball player ever, did terribly. He tripped over the ball when he tried to kick it, and when Terrence kicked a pop-up, Lewis tried to catch it, but the ball bounced off his head. What's wrong with Lewis? Asked Ron in his is he sick or something? Yes, said Jenny. He's got a real bad disease, and it's spelled Love. The next morning, Lewis came to school with a bunch of flowers in his hands. Jenny saw him. Are those from Miss Nogard? She asked. Oh, I don't know, said Lewis. I passed a field of wildflowers on the way to school. I thought I might give them to someone special. He winked at her. He headed toward the school building. Jenny followed. Ooh, flowers, said Bebe. Are you going to give them to Miss Nogard? Asked Kelvin. Oh, I don't know, said Lewis. I think she might have a pretty vase. Kelvin and Bebe followed along with Jenny. Lewis entered the building. Miss Nogard was in the office. She was getting her mail from her box. Her back was to him. Lewis froze. Go on, Lewis, urged Jenny. But Lewis just stood there. The flowers rattled in his shaky hand, and several petals fell to the floor. Mr. Kidswatter came out of his office. Good morning, Lewis, he said. What have you got there? These are for you, said Lewis. He thrust the flowers into Mr. Kidswatter's hand. They're lovely, said Mr. Kidswatter. Miss Nogard turned around. Those are very pretty, Mr. Kidswatter, she said, then headed up the stairs. Lewis watched her go. No one's ever brought me flowers before, said Mr. Kidswatter. You may not believe this, Lewis, but I don't have many friends. He put his hand on Lewis's shoulder. You're like a son to me, he said. And you're a maggot-infested string bean, muttered Lewis. What? Asked Mr. K. I said, you're a magnificent human being. Chapter 29. Stupid. Did anyone have any trouble with the homework? Asked Miss Nogard. They all shook their heads. Ron shook his head too. Homework, he thought. What homework? Good, said Miss Nogard. Well, in that case, there won't be any homework tonight. Everyone cheered. Let's just quickly go over the answers, she said. Ron, what was your answer to question 1? Ron's stomach flipped over. He fumbled with his notebook. Just a second, he said. That's okay, we'll wait, said Miss Nogard. Ron flipped through the pages. What question are we on, he asked. Question 1, said Miss Nogard. I couldn't get that one, said Ron. Oh, said Miss Nogard. Well, that's okay, Ron, as long as you tried. Who knows the answer to question 1? A handful of hands went up in the air. 7 lima beans, thought Jason. 7 lima beans, thought Rondi. 6 cucumbers, thought Dee Dee. 7 lima beans, thought Stephen. Miss Nogard called on Dee Dee. 6 cucumbers, Dee Dee said proudly. No, I'm sorry, said Miss Nogard. The answer was 7 lima beans. Ooh, I had that, thought Jason. She should have called on me, thought Rondi. Dee Dee's stupid, thought Stephen. Okay, question 2, said Miss Nogard. Ron, did you get that one? Ron squirmed in his seat. He flipped through his papers. What question are we on, he asked. Question 2, said Miss Nogard. I couldn't get that one either, said Ron. Miss Nogard looked at him a moment. Okay, who knows the answer to question 2? Abraham Lincoln's hat, thought Todd. Abraham Lincoln's hat, thought Joy. Abraham Lincoln's hat, thought Bibi. George Washington's left shoe, thought Kelvin. Yes, Kelvin, said Miss Nogard. George Washington's left shoe, said Kelvin. No, I'm sorry, said Miss Nogard. The answer was Abraham Lincoln's hat. I knew it, thought Todd. Kelvin's stupid, thought Joy. Ron, did you get the answer to number 3? asked Miss Nogard. Ron shook his sorry little head. He wished he had just told her the truth, but now it was too late. Anyone? asked Miss Nogard. Chairs and bears, thought Benjamin. Chairs and coats and goats, thought DJ. Chairs and bears, thought Mac. Chairs and bears, thought Dee Dee. Miss Nogard called on DJ. Coats and goats, he said hopefully. No, chairs and bears, said Miss Nogard. What an idiot, thought Benjamin. Question 4, said Miss Nogard. Ron. And so it went. Miss Nogard went through the entire homework assignment and nobody gave a correct answer. I'm very disappointed, she said when they were finished. You obviously didn't understand it, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to assign homework tonight after all. Everyone groaned. I don't like it any better than you do, said Miss Nogard, but it's for your own good. She assigned 3 pages of homework, plus they had to do yesterday's homework over again as well. But nobody blamed Miss Nogard. They liked her. She didn't even want to give homework. They blamed each other. It's not fair, thought Benjamin. I only missed 1 problem, but I have to do extra homework because everyone else is so stupid. It was the same all around the room. Nobody missed more than 2 problems. Everyone thought everyone else was stupid. Miss Nogard smiled as she listened to their thoughts. I hate Joe, thought John. I hate Kelvin, thought Bibi. I hate Joy, thought Marisha. I hate Allison, thought Rondi, and everyone hated Ron. That wasn't a very nice chapter. This substitute teacher is very mean, isn't she? I don't like it. And you should never call each other stupid or think you're stupid if you get the wrong answer. I don't agree with this chapter, but it makes the book silly, I guess. But be nice to each other. Oh, and that should be the code word. Nice. Be nice to one another. Nice is a good thing. Send me a private message that says nice, and I'll give you an extra credit point in a religion assignment. Nice. Chapter 30. Here it is. Last chapter of the book. The Little Stranger. Look at it. Wayside School was no fun anymore. Hey, out of my way, Buster, said Dee Dee as she pushed past Ron on her way to her seat. Hey, keep your hairy paws to yourself, said Ron. Nobody had any friends. Everyone hated everybody except Miss Nogard. They all liked her. But then a miracle happened. A new kid came to school. The new kid couldn't talk. She had no teeth. She was almost bald. She was beautiful. Her name was Mavis Jules. She was only 4 days old. She really was a new kid. Mrs. Jules carried her into the classroom, and when the baby came through the door, all the hate flew out the window. Louis came in behind them carrying a bassinet, a diaper bag, an assortment of toys, and a baby bottle. It's Mrs. Jules and her baby, Todd exclaimed. Louis set the bassinet on Todd's desk. Mrs. Jules gently laid her baby down in it on soft yellow blankets. Everyone crowded around the little stranger. Look at her totally tiny toes, Bibi squealed. Aren't those the cutest things you've ever seen in your whole life? Check out her nose, said Myron. Oh, she's so beautiful, Mrs. Jules, said Joy. Can I touch her? Sure, said Mrs. Jules. They took turns touching the baby. Goo, 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 said Mac as he gently shook Mavis's little hand. Iggle, wiggle, poo, poo, said Allison, tapping her on the nose. Iggle, wiggle, poo, 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 said Rondi, tickling her foot. Yibble bibble, said Todd. Boo, 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 cooed Joe. She's never going to learn to talk around you kids, said Mrs. Jules with a laugh. Dana was so happy she cried. She hugged Mrs. Jules. They all took turns hugging Mrs. Jules. Of course, there was one person who wasn't happy. May I hold her, Mrs. Jules? Miss Nogard asked sweetly. Mrs. Jules looked at the substitute teacher. It's okay, said Allison. Miss Nogard's a real nice teacher. Sure, go ahead, said Miss Jules. I'm sorry for interrupting your class like this. Oh, that's quite all right, said Miss Nogard, picking up Mrs. Jules' baby. She's just adorable. The window by Sherry's desk was wide open. That's kind of dangerous, Miss Nogard realized. Somebody might accidentally drop something out of the window. She slowly moved toward it as she swayed with the baby. I've heard so much about you, Mrs. Jules. She said, the children have missed you. I've missed them too, said Mrs. Jules. There was a rubber band ball on the floor next to Sherry's desk. Sherry had been making it, although it wasn't nearly as big as the one Mr. Kidswater had been making. If I tripped over that rubber band ball, something awful might happen, thought Miss Nogard. She was just about to step on it when suddenly she became very curious about the kind of thoughts babies had. She had never listened to a baby's brain before. Miss Nogard held Mavis close to her heart and listened. She gasped. Her face turned white and her legs wobbled beneath her. As she tried to get her balance, she stepped on the rubber band ball and fell toward the open window. Louis jumped over Sherry's desk and grabbed her just in time. Mrs. Jules hurried over. Miss Nogard tenderly handed Mrs. Jules her baby. Then she fainted in Louis's arms. It is impossible to describe in words exactly what Miss Nogard heard when she listened to Mavis's brain. Babies don't think in words. Miss Nogard heard pure love and trust and faith with no words to get in the way. It was a love so strong that it dissolved away all the bitterness that had been caked around her heart. She opened her eyes. Are you all right, Miss Nogard? Asked Stephen. All the children were very worried about her. Miss Nogard smiled at Louis, who was still holding her. I'm fine, she said, then took a couple of steps to steady herself. In fact, I think I'm better than I've ever been in a long time, she laughed, then hugged Stephen. You should feel very proud of your class, she told Mrs. Jules. They are bright, well-behaved, and just a pleasure to teach. We are? Asked Marisha. Miss Nogard fluffed Marisha's hair. Yes, you are, she said. Marisha smiled up at her. I know, said Mrs. Jules. As I told my obstetrician. Your what? Asked Joy. Obstetrician, said Mrs. Jules. That's the doctor who helped me have my baby. Then once a baby is born, she gets a new doctor. That doctor is called a pediatrician. That's different from a podiatrist, who's a doctor who takes care of people's feet. There are many different kinds of doctors. There's also a... Todd raised his hand. Miss Jules, you're starting to get a little boring, he said. Mrs. Jules made Todd write his name on the blackboard under the word discipline. Hey, Louis, shouted Mac. Ask Miss Nogard out on a date. Everyone looked at Louis. Miss Nogard looked at him, too. Do it, Louis, said Leslie. I really would like to get to know you better, Miss Nogard, he said. Ooh, said Paul and Leslie. Way to go, Louis, cheered DJ. Call me Wendy, said Wendy Nogard. Ooh, said Bibi and Kelvin. Okay, Wendy, said Louis, and you can call me Louis. I already do, said Wendy. She smiled at him. He smiled back. So what do you say? He asked. Would you like to go out sometime? Miss Nogard hesitated. Say yes, Miss Nogard, urged Jenny. Miss Nogard took a deep breath. I like you, Louis, she said, but I think there's something you should know about me first. She bent over and parted the hair on top of her head. Everyone crowded around as they tried to get a good look. It's an ear, shouted Jason. Yes, it is an ear, said Miss Nogard. Cool, said Terrence. Can I touch it? Asked Dana. Everyone took turns touching her ear, the one on top of her head, I mean. So, Louis, are you sure you still want to go out with me? She asked. Louis held her hands in his. I like you a lot, he said. It doesn't matter how many ears you have. He paused for a second. How many ears do you have? Just 3, she assured him. I think your ears are beautiful, said Louis. I think your nose and eyebrows are beautiful. Miss Nogard didn't have to read Louis's mind to know he was telling the truth. She could see it in his eyes. His eyes were like the moon. She kissed him. His mustache tickled. Everybody oohed. The end. Are you happy for Louis? Maybe in the next book we'll find out if it's true love. I don't know. So listen, I have the next book, and the next book just came out like last month, and so the copyright date's 2020. This book was made in 1995. That was the year I graduated from high school. 25 years ago, this book came out, and now the new book is out. Isn't that crazy? It took 25 years for the author, right there, to write it. And look at his name's Lewis. That's so funny. So go ahead and take the AR test here. I'll put it on the screen for you. Those of you who've listened, 11497 is the number. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to see how you do on the AR test. Talk to you guys later. Bye.